Welcome. I am Dr. Byyyeee, licensed psychologist, and I am so excited to be joined by Cyber Fareedah. Can you give us a little introduction?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Cyber Fareedah. I'm an award-winning Forbes 30 under 30 internet safety expert. My background is in cybersecurity awareness, threat intelligence, online gaming, and all I do is I help parents protect their kids online.
And that is so important. So, for anybody that doesn't know me, because we have been able to link our communities,
Link.
and we are going to have comments in the chat. So, if you do have questions or anything, please let us know. But with this conversation, I'm a licensed psychologist and content creator. And we're going to be talking about protecting our kids online, including talking about social media, because that's a big thing that parents talk about, specifically for the mental health. And I didn't even realize when we scheduled this that it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
That is, oh my God, that's right. It's almost as if we thought of it. We absolutely did not. We just do this all the time that we just, it just happens.
It just worked out this way. And so, why is it important for parents to be aware of what their kids are doing online?
Oh my gosh. Because if you're not aware, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going on in your kid's brain. You don't know who they're talking to. You don't know the effect that it has on them. If you don't know they're playing a certain game, if you don't know what social media platforms they're on, it's difficult to have conversations to actually protect them online. And I saw this research study that I thought was interesting, and I'm going to mention it and then I'll put it in the comments later. I did not read it. Okay. So no one come for me. I read the headline. That was it. So, you can't claim fake news once I actually read it. But it was saying that there are certain social media platforms that are actually good for kids' mental health if used correctly, which I thought was really interesting. And in particular, actually, I'm going to let you guess what you think it is.
The ones that might be good for mental health. I wonder, because I'm not thinking it's Instagram. I'm not thinking.
No, because that's the one that has the worst.
That's the worst. I think of and it's social media specifically. It was a social media.
It could be categorized social media, but kids use it all the time.
I was wondering if it was like Snapchat or something.
Almost. We're almost there. It's not exactly social media, but it's kind of social media.
What is it?
And you use it all the time and you love it.
TikTok?
YouTube.
YouTube. There we go. Where we are now.
We're right now. Isn't that crazy? I was like, I need to look at the study to understand a little bit more, because TikTok has transformed a lot of people's mental health in such an amazing way. Like, I've seen so many people, young people, older people, change their entire lives from content that they saw on TikTok. So I feel like TikTok does not get enough credit for the mental health aspect of it. However, there's a lot of horrible things that happen on all platforms, YouTube included. Even though the research paper says YouTube is the best, YouTube included. So I thought that was interesting. I have to read the study though, y'all. I didn't read.
And there are things the platforms are doing to try to make it safer places for kids online, and even for adults, because adults can fall down rabbit holes with misinformation. I've seen it clinically where clients have come in and they are talking about these, like they got into some conspiracy theories that were not true.
Ooh.
And having to kind of talk with them and their family about, and the parents weren't on board. It would have been a more difficult situation if the parents were on board for me, but the parents were not on board with the conspiracy theory, and we had to talk about how do you vet the information that you see online. And YouTube is offering, and I have it on my channel, they have a verified health professional.
I did see that.
Where health professionals are able, once they meet certain criteria by the platform, they're able to submit their credentials. And I submitted my license, and they verified that, yes, I am a licensed provider.
Yes. What? Oh, I honestly, the first time I saw it was on your channel, and I was like, am I tripping, or is this the first time I've ever seen this in my life?
And it's
so cool.
And it's a newer thing. And even when you search anxiety in YouTube, it says like there will be a section of the search that says from health creators. And those are the verified, that their information is going to come up to the top.
Wow.
Versus just anything kind of popping up.
I
about it.
love that. I mean, one thing I do have to say is as much flack that we give these platforms, and with reasonable, I mean, because a lot of crazy stuff is happening. I mean, if kids are being affected in a way that's taking their lives or destroying their mental health or allowing them to meet people who destroy their lives, we have to put fire under them to change their platforms. And so there's a lot that we have to say about TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram, Facebook, and all the places. But at the same time, there's so many leaps that they're making to protect kids online. And it is important to like highlight that as well. I also believe that we're doing a disservice to children if we always focus on the bad of social media. And I
Yes.
believe that the more we focus on the bad as a society, the less we're able to protect kids online. And I kind of find it infuriating, and I'm just saying this very lightly, when I go to certain people's accounts, every now and then I come across it. Not a lot of people make content, and all of their content is like social media is the worst thing that could ever happen to kids. It's like this is like the Satan reincarnated, and I'm like, okay, I understand your points of view. You have 100% like right to feel that way. There's actually I feel that way sometimes when I see certain news stories. Takes me a while to bounce back. It's very infuriating. At the same time, if you keep speaking that language, why would your child come to you to talk to you
There we
about
go.
what's happening?
That is so important because even so, me as a licensed professional, I love it when my clients tell me like what's coming up on their for you feed or in their algorithm. What does their algorithm look like? And it will be interesting if they do limit how kids are targeted with certain things because
Yes, absolutely.
and I think Instagram is the one that got in the most trouble with that because they realized that when individuals were kind of already sad or anxious or not feeling good about their bodies, that they
Hmm.
would feed them more information that kind of reinforced that feeling
Lord.
versus feeding them something that would be positive and helpful and reach like, do you need help or support?
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it took lawsuits. It took major things happening to get people's attention about it. I love how you talk about on your channel and how we connected on this topic was being able to how do you talk to kids when you see something that is concerning? And I have this happen with clients all the time. And my first tip to them is always number one, fake it.
Fake
The
it.
adult,
Fake
the
the whole
adult,
thing. Become an actress, an actor.
the
Best selling, Oscar
adult
winning.
has to manage their emotions first because if I go into my child, how dare you? How could you? Oh my, like first of all, they're gonna lie. Like
There,
I'm
yeah.
just straight up there. It wasn't me. My friend got my phone. Like
Wasn't me.
they are gonna or their brain is gonna shut off because when we
Mhm.
are yelling and screaming and shaming and blaming someone, they are not listening. And I do think that we can turn these into teachable moments. I really think we do.
So how can a parent come back from that? Like, let's say they had a moment, they didn't have their Oscar performance ready. What can they do to come back from that moment?
I think coming back from it is acknowledging I was scared. That brought up something in me. And first of all, I'm sorry. I overreacted and I get it. I'm glad there wasn't social media like this when I was a kid. And I think a parent having a legit honest conversation and showing some empathy, putting themselves in their child's shoes because right now when I react out of my emotion, I'm reacting as that parent that's fearful for my child. And fear can sometimes cause us to overreact. And so that's why I don't want to cuz fear will shut down my thinking brain sometimes and
True.
will cause me to react instead of respond. So if I realized, ooh, that was a reaction, I need to go back and I need to have a conversation. And so to be able to calmly come back and say, help me understand. So don't say why. Why is the worst question? Because there probably isn't a good
Mm.
reason. Why did you
Don't even ask why. Just leave it
don't
alone.
just drop the why. Help me understand what happened here. So I saw you post this. What was that about? So start from a place of curiosity, genuine curiosity, because I want to get to the root. I don't want to just chop off this behavior and then something worse pop up later. Because sometimes people are crying out for help. They are seeking negative attention. Sometimes there really is a deeper concern or a deeper issue going on. But when I come from that place of like I want to help and I want to understand. And that's what I do as a therapist. And that's where but I tell parents, I, I have plenty of clients to work with. Like, I promise, if you do it this way, you will need me less.
You're like, I got this. You
Like,
can like self-coach yourself.
we have a million other things that we could be working on. And I think also kids they're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
So when I have a parent talking about getting their 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old a new device, we have a conversation of, hey, how are you going to handle it when you find something concerning? Not if.
Yeah, when.
When.
Yeah, because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Okay, so I get a lot of questions about like phone addiction, social media addiction, that type of stuff. And I want to ask from your point of view, as someone who's like licensed in this, 2 areas. Do you believe that phone addiction is something that is a problem that's deeper than just they're addicted to social media and they want to be on it all the time? There's like something going on, they're escaping or whatever. And or do you believe they're modeling the habits that they see in their parents' house?
Like, as my phone is like within arm's reach.
It's right here.
So during quarantine, my toddler so my child is 5 now, but he was 2 or 3. He used to put my phone in timeout.
Oh,
and that was my sign. Ooh,
You're
maybe
like, oh.
I need to, because every time he was playing, every time I was with him, I would always have my phone in my hand.
Yeah.
And so I do think it does start with that modeling. But I bet you with every technology, we've always had this. And so before the phone, it was the TV.
Yes.
Before the TV, it was the radio.
Yes.
Before the radio, like, I'm sure there has always been this new technology, this new device. And distractions can sometimes be a good coping skill. So I did a travel video recently, and like, hey, parents, plan for your child to be on their phone some. Like, it would be like don't unless
freak
you take
out.
them out to it. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Or take them to an area that has no cell service. Like,
like, oops,
those
sorry.
are your options. Because if they have the ability, so our phones are how we stay connected right now.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of parents that are upset about their child's phone usage, they're using Alexa to get them to come downstairs.
Like, hey, Alexa, please tell my kids, make an announcement, wake up, come downstairs.
And so I do think there is a way to befriend the technology and then watch for the signs. So normally, and once again, it goes back to that empathy place of, because I remember when I was a teenager, the worst thing you could do was take away the phone. Like, and that was the cordless, that was the phone. And the phone is how they stay connected with others. And because sometimes people are disconnected in their communities. They might not be going to friends next door. Those people they game with are genuine friends that they have. And now we have to be careful with that. Make sure we're not sharing personal information. As a
gamer, like, I've been gaming since I was 13 years old. Those people still friends with today. People got married, divorced, had kids, met some of them in person. Like, amazing people, but also like really traumatic experiences at the same time, because they're strangers, but amazing, beautiful relationships can come out of people you met online. Like, we met in Clubhouse in the panoramic, where we were on Clubhouse for way too long every day.
Hours. So I ended up getting a little addicted to, but I had nothing else to do. I was bored. And sometimes, so I am naturally an extrovert. I love to connect with others. I love to connect with people. And sometimes I think there is a way where we can reframe what we're seeing to say, like, hey, let's set some limits around. So I'm all for boundaries. And so maybe I set a boundary around time on the phone, but always know, parents, remember, kids will find ways around that boundary.
They will.
I will never forget somebody I worked with found out that they couldn't send calls, but they could still like receive calls. It was something weird that they figured out a way to go around the boundary the parent had set. And so when that happens, we just have to communicate those things. And because if there's a problem, I want my child to come and tell me. And so we need to have something of, hey, if you see something inappropriate, I want you to show it to me. And because there's something inappropriate on TikTok doesn't mean you can never ever be on TikTok ever
Right,
again.
ever again. It's
I'll never
taking
forget with, I think it was on Snapchat, or it was with stories, I think on Snapchat or something, because somebody got in trouble because something inappropriate popped up on the story, and the parent
oh.
didn't understand. They didn't have any control
Oh,
over
yeah.
like what popped up. Now, if you like it, if you want, yeah, that's, but like they didn't have any control that this inappropriate thing did pop up. And so I do think parents have to stay knowledgeable. So whatever social media, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Me
Whenever
too.
my child has social media, he's probably going to be on whatever the new, like he's not going to be on TikTok.
Yeah, oh my God, I wonder what the new social media will be. Like, isn't that interesting?
So
I feel
Be Real. Be Real's the
Oh,
one.
yeah, be real. People well, that's a whole other time. I was supposed to do a YouTube video on that because I was like, what's going on? This I don't know.
And you have to post. TikTok tried to do their version of it
I
and
don't
it
think it
didn't work.
worked.
It
Yeah.
didn't. It was like TikTok Now or something,
Yeah, it
and
was weird. No.
it didn't work.
And no one, and then they're like, you can't look at someone's TikTok now unless you did a
Unless
TikTok now. And then they changed that because they realized no one cared. And so they showed you just like a sneak peek, like only 3 TikTok now, but now you have to get on TikTok now. And I'm like, girl, I don't want to be on TikTok now. Like, leave me alone.
I'm not going to do it. But because you asked a great question about my thoughts on addiction, and I think it's complicated because is it impairing my functioning? Because that's clinically,
Mm.
that is what defines an addiction. So am I looking at TikTok while I drive?
Oh,
Like
yeah. Then now we get a
that would be
problem.
a problem.
Yeah.
Am I, while I'm at work, and
Hmm.
while I'm with a client, am I
Yes.
checking my YouTube comments? Like that, those things
It's a
would indicate a problem. But if this is when I relax, when I have downtime, when I'm bored. So boredom is a big,
Yes,
like
huge.
that's where sometimes either that's where people will go to what they enjoy most
You
likely.
know what I
And
started
so,
doing, which is helpful for me, and is when I go on TikTok and I don't need to sit down, I just start walking around and I'm on TikTok. I'll go down up. I have a lot of stairs in this house, and so I go up and down the stairs on TikTok. And just for like, I'm like, okay, I'll allow myself to be on TikTok for 15 minutes and then 50 minutes up and down the stairs through the house. Like, I just
I
started doing
love
it.
that.
Game changer. Game changer.
Because I'm not only, because it's not mindless scrolling, because even the physical activity helps you stay connected. Because
Hmm.
I have lost like an hour on just
An hour? Are you kidding me? So about 3 hours, 4 hours. I just love that you have 1 hour there.
I was trying to be, let's say it was only 1 hour.
TikTok is the best platform for being, because before I got on TikTok, I got on it because I was like, okay, all the kids are on it, all the people my age are on it because I'm like 25 going on 26, so I'm like all the Gen Z, millennials, zennials are on it. Let me be on this platform, especially because I talk to parents. But it took me a while to get on the platform because of all the security, privacy
Yeah.
issues it was having. I didn't want to be involved in that. And I knew that if I came on TikTok, I would have the good reason to be on there. There'd be a little bit of backlash from my audience, like, why are you on TikTok? So it took me like 2 years to get on it. Once I got on it, I quickly understood within 30 minutes, this is the best social media platform we have ever experienced in our lifetime, period, ever, ever.
So when I first downloaded TikTok, I did not go to, I had trouble sleeping that night because I was so excited about what I wanted to create the
Yeah.
next
Oh,
day. It
you're
was,
good.
because it was like late at night. I needed to go to bed. But like I downloaded it because a client was like, hey, because I kept sending them YouTube videos and they're like, that's too long. Can you
Give me 30 seconds.
can they wrap this up? Can you talk about rejection
Wow.
sensitive dysphoria, which I had never learned about in school?
Wow.
So that's where when we talk about the ways that platforms can be helpful, and I think that's where people not engaging with content that they don't like. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's incredibly
Huge.
important. And I think we have to teach these things to kids. I think we have to teach them. So that's the perspective that I take, is I want to show my child. I see discipline as teaching. And
Mm-hmm.
so with those boundaries, with what I model, and that's why, so I have never done an angry reaction to a comment or anything, because I that's not good for my mental health.
It
And
really is
I
not.
know that what I do online, because I'm here in a professional role, that it can reflect back on me
Oh, yes.
professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think sometimes kids, I don't think they understand that, hey, these TikToks and things you're doing,
Yeah.
like if you try to run for president, somebody's gonna find.
Someone's pulling forget Twitter, they're pulling up your TikToks, okay? It's never gonna go away. I've talked to parents who kids want to create content online, and they always ask me about the security aspect, the safety aspect, but one big thing that comes up, and I always love to talk about, is the mental health aspect of creating content for younger kids. So can you talk about that and your opinions on it?
So I think for any age, so I am 40, and the first time a video went viral, I got extremely anxious.
Yeah,
Like that was just weird. Like it was just because it wasn't, so the video that goes viral, it's not going to be the video you thought
ever,
would.
ever.
It's never the content that you're like, I love this form of content. I
No.
know it's going to do great. Unless you're Elise Myers. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be that video that you absolutely love.
Nope.
And so I think with younger kids, I think we have to be careful with, there could be people engaging with them that have bad motives, that have bad intentions. And I think the parent needs to monitor what's being said. So the comments, because people are going to comment on how they look, on what they're doing, on why they're doing this. People are going to share their opinions, and children, it's normal for them to care.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. So do you think, what age do you and I know this is a very depends question, but just, and you answer it how you see best, but what age is like the minimum age you would say, okay, as a parent, you can think about your kid creating content online? Or yeah.
So I would start with my child doing a faceless account or something. So like
Love
if
that.
they're under the age of 12,
Hmm.
I would start with my child doing something faceless,
I like that.
or we might be together. If my
Hmm.
child did want to create content,
That's
and
amazing.
even on these platforms, content under the age of 13 has to be moderated
Yes,
by the
has to.
parent.
Has to say
And
like monitored or managed by parent.
so I think because of that, they've tried to give the parents some power in that. But I do hope that they protect child content creators. There is a big. Do you have you followed the
The latest
one?
case with
Yes,
the house, the girls, and they were managed by their mother and the mother's
yes,
boyfriend, and
yes. I
oh
forget the
god.
name, but
Me too, but I
that
know what you're talking
one
about.
where they were creating, it's the details will get flags on YouTube. And
Yeah.
so I think there should be protections over, are they in school? Because sometimes these accounts get to the point where these kids are making 100,000, 200 millions of dollars.
Right.
And that's where I think making sure that there's some protection for the child, similar to child actors, where they have to be in school. They have to, some of the money has to be in a trust for them, or just making sure that things are managed in that way. I heard once that Ryan, the
Ryan's
Ryan,
World,
yeah,
the
Ryan's
yeah.
World, that the things that he opens, he doesn't get to keep those toys.
Oh,
That they
I
like.
guess. Yeah, I guess he opens a lot of toys, so he can't keep all of them, but I wonder what that does, like,
And
hmm.
so all the things that you see him opening, like this is their persona. This isn't their real life. And I saw a LawTube creator, Emily D. Baker. She
Oh, I
talked
love her.
about, I love her. She's amazing. She talked about how when kids are creating, that sometimes, especially if they do it as a group, that sometimes you don't know if the interactions are genuine Or were you just
Mm.
my friend because we created
Yes.
content
Okay,
together?
so we watched the same video because when
It was
she
so
said
good.
that, I was like, "Oh my god," because we take for granted that the relationships we have now, sometimes, they're work relationships or someone you meet and you're like, "Is this?" But you don't have that feeling because you're not creating content, you're not making money off of each other. I heard some of the kids aren't even getting the money from the projects. And so one thing I always tell parents is like, if your kid is gonna create content, it's not about let's wait for a second about can your kid handle it. I'm like, can you handle it? Because if your kid is creating content, you have to manage that entire thing. And if you go viral, I mean, first of all, and then they will create businesses. Okay, this is a whole rabbit hole. But people will create businesses off their kids, which is totally fine. I'm not gonna get into that conversation. Is it sometimes not fine? Absolutely. You have parents who just it's they don't have their kids' best interests at heart. Let's just say that. But I believe it goes way deeper than just posting the kid online. It goes to lack of boundaries, lack of let's just operating from their trauma, etc. But they're creating businesses for their kids because the channel starts doing well, but they don't know how to protect their privacy and security. So they create
Yes.
an LLC or whatever, but they create it and they have their address online. And so now
The
someone who's
home
following the kid,
address.
yeah, exactly, they're like, oh, you started, Ryan's World LLC, and you actually have your home address. And there are people who came up to kids' houses and stalked them and saw where they were going and calling them by name and knowing every detail of their world. So you have to be like so careful when you start this, because not only are you caring for your kids' mental health in the comments and being there, but also your mental health and managing the entire thing. You have to have the money, the negotiation, the contract, the security, the safety, the privacy. I mean, it's endless. So I'm like, are you okay? Like,
And I love that you brought up the safety piece because you shared the FBI website because I think that was on Clubhouse or I forget where we were talking, but it was something that I shared with clients. Could you do you know which
oh, the
site?
safe online surfing game for
Yes,
kids? Yes.
yes.
So FBI has this game called Safe Online Surfing for Kids. I believe it starts from third grade all the way up until eighth or ninth grade.
Yeah.
And it teaches kids about staying safe online. And it's a great game. I love it. It's free. You don't have to sign up. You can just literally click buttons and then get to it. Google's Be Internet Awesome is similar as well.
And I recommended that to some people that I was working with because their usernames for their game included their age. It
Yes.
included their real name.
Right. It's
It
like Ryan
included their
13 or something.
their date of birth or
Hmm.
the year they were born or and I had just never thought about so my very first email address, I think I used our zip code of where we
Right.
lived at that
Yes. We do that all the
at
time.
that time.
Which
And but the world was just very different
Mhm.
at that point at that time. And even as a content creator myself at 40, I don't share like where I live or I don't share the exact location and things just because it can open doors because sometimes people form these parasocial relationships
Yes.
where and we do it with movie stars or
Mhm.
so if the villain from the show if you run into them on the street you
You
feelings
might
of real anger
yeah. Like,
feelings of anger might come up or when a show gets rid of our favorite character
oh.
like sometimes like there are real feelings that like almost like we lost the person
Right. You
in
see
real
them on the
life
street and you're like, "Didn't you die?"
like I'm too soon. I'm not ready. And so I do think in protecting kids online, we have to have some of these conversations about and parents have to be aware because as a parent before we had that conversation, I wouldn't have thought about my child not using, their
Yeah.
date of birth or and so we have a nickname for our child
Oh, I love
so
that.
any because he has like an electronic toothbrush where we set up a profile. And the profile is like nobody else, but I still
I
like
love how
I
you
set it
that's
up with a nickname with
oh
his
my god,
like I
I
don't
love
have it
this.
as his real name.
That's a safety tip, y'all. Like, write that down. That's amazing. Oh my god. I mean, okay, so I posted this thing that Gary Vee said, and I love that he said this. I'm going to contact him. Hi, Gary Vee, because I want to do something with him. Because he said he was telling a parent the best way to protect your kid online is to develop their confidence and to develop their emotional intelligence. And I was like, okay, Gary, yes, we love that. So, like, how do you realistically develop a kid's confidence and emotional intelligence?
First of all, it starts so young. And so if anybody watching or viewing, and please, if you have questions, please let us know in the comments. But it starts as young. So my child at 5, he's been picking out his own clothes for about since he was 3.
His own, oh my God, I love
Like,
that.
so
Wait a
like
minute.
what he wears each day. Now we live in Virginia, so the weather got weird because it got really hot. So I took down the shorts, and then all of a sudden it got cold, and so he came down in shorts, and I was
I
like,
was like, no.
you got to go put on some pants, and he was like, ugh. And he did. He went and he put on some pants, and I moved the shorts back up out of his reach because I don't want to have it to be a battle. So I try to have where there's no bad option. So he's not wearing, so I don't have his like fancy clothes that he can't wear to school. That's not at his reach. But starting from a very young age, I let him make choices and decisions, and I let him know that his voice is important. And now he has to be respectful. There are boundaries around that. And then if, let's say, my child, they're not ready for that yet, I can at least maybe set out 2 different options, and it's their choice. 2 options where there's no bad choice of which one they do. Sometimes in the morning, I ask him, I'm like, all right, so are we doing breakfast first? Or are we brushing our teeth first? And the goal is both are going to get done.
Right. So which one do you do first?
Which one are you going to do first? And it's like, hey, breakfast first. All right, let's go do breakfast. Not a problem. And so because sometimes we start, I've seen a lot of helicopter parents where they're trying to protect their child from ever experiencing any bad thing ever. And as a parent, I totally validate, I get it, that we don't want anything bad to happen to our child, but I also have to equip him with tools for if something does happen, that he will come to me, that he knows what's okay, what's not okay. And emotions, we talk about, hey, it's okay to get angry, we just don't hit, kick. And so validating my child's emotions. So if my child comes home and he's like, oh, I had such a horrible day, that I don't say, oh, well, let me tell you, did you have to go to work? What was so bad about kindergarten? Like, isn't it Foodie Friday? Like y'all, what could have been? And so it's like, oh, you had a bad day. What? Let's talk about it. And validation doesn't mean approval. So I can validate his day, that, oh, you had a tough day. Well, sometimes our brains, when we have a tough day, sometimes it forgets the good stuff. So I'm sure like something positive happened.
Right.
And so, because sometimes parents immediately want to redirect, like it couldn't have been that bad. And so then the kid is like, oh, okay, so being bullied at school, that's not big enough. So maybe I don't. So then the problems keep getting, because they're trying to get our attention. And so I normalize. I think it's normal for kids to want our attention, but sometimes they go about it the wrong way. I don't like the word manipulative. It's just my own personal thing.
Yeah.
I was raised by a single mom, and my disconnect with game systems. So you will get this. I asked my mom for a Nintendo, and she said, "I'm not going to buy you one." So I was like,
okay.
So I called my dad, and I was like, "I'd really like a Nintendo."
He's like, "Oh, okay."
A Nintendo shows up to the house, and my mom was like, I told you you couldn't." I was like, you said you wouldn't buy it. But
I did the same thing.
She wasn't a new age mom. I couldn't say that back to her. She's better now, but I couldn't say that back then. So I ended up having to sell my Nintendo to my cousins, and
not your cousin.
And they loved my like brand new.
I'm sure
Nintendo. They did. But she set that boundary of like, hey, this is my home. I get to moderate what comes into my home. So that's what I do. We're looking at getting our kid a Switch. Like that's going to be
Yes.
his first little gaming
I love
system.
it.
He's going to be turning 6, and I've
Oh.
already like I have the parent control app already
Yes,
downloaded.
yes, yeah. Honestly, I believe Nintendo Switch is the best like beginning for
Yes.
younger kids under 13, and that's what I mean by younger kids.
Yeah.
I and honestly, real quick, the thing that you mentioned about like the choices between clothing, I believe that works super well when you're trying to get your kid off one game and get to another. So let's just say they want Roblox or they're on Roblox and you're like no Roblox anymore or no Roblox period. Instead of taking away Roblox and being like you're going to have Nintendo Switch, you can say, okay, here's the thing. Roblox is no longer allowed in the house because of this. I know you really enjoyed it. I know you're really upset. I know you can be really angry. We can talk about it. There are 2 different options of games you can play instead of Roblox. Which one do you want? And so that allows them to like have that choice. It allows them to have like, oh my God, like there's a different choice that I can make here instead of it being that they're forced into one particular game. So I love that you said the choices because that goes with alternatives to whatever you want to pull your kid off as well.
And real quick, I also love when parents play the game with their child.
Yes, please
And
do that.
so, because I really do think it lets you see into their world, because I do think kids can learn about regulating their emotions
Oh
through
gosh.
video games,
Oh
and
yeah.
you have to pay attention. You have to have like there are all of these lessons and things that you can learn. The one thing that I do like for parents to explain is that like as long as it's consistent, like because I think sometimes when people don't follow the recommendations for the appropriate age range, like I've worked with 5-year-olds that were playing Call of Duty, and it's just like,
Yes, yes.
like
Yeah, the
that's
only case of Call of Duty that I saw that could
yeah,
have beneficial effects,
yeah,
the only
yeah.
case, this one in my entire life, is this kid that plays with his father like 1 or 2 hours a day and they play Call of Duty together after dinner. I was like, that is the cutest thing ever. That's amazing. I think it's perfect. Other than that, do not do that. That's horrible.
And,
Right?
and and I think like there's an appropriate age
Yes.
where because kids under the age of 12 struggle with the finality of death. So that's just
Ooh. Oh, can you talk about that a little bit more about violence in games and ages?
yes, and so they did a study where because they wanted to see if we were born to be violent, and
Oh,
so
wow. Damn.
they just so they let kids play with a little clown, and most kids didn't do anything violent to the clown. And then in another situation, they showed the kids something violent, and then like
Mm.
somebody hitting the clown,
Yeah.
and then they put them in the room with the clown, and they're like, oh, this is what we do, and so
Wow.
that sometimes this can be modeled behavior, and so that's where I want to be careful what I'm letting my kid have access to, and just being and every kid's maturity, every kid's development is going to be different. I don't think violent video games cause necessarily, but individuals that are at risk to engaging in violent behavior and maybe already lacking some difficulty with empathy or already kind of having some problematic impulse control, having some problematic behaviors, that sometimes this can be it can lead to some stuff down the road.
And it makes sense to me because I'm like the words and pictures that your mind sees or consumes. I mean, because our we only process the world in words and pictures, right? And so if your kid is consuming words and pictures that is telling, it's saying, okay, this is how you behave, this is how you act. Then of course they're going to be influenced by it, especially because their brain hasn't developed in that way yet. So I mean, to me, even as a gamer, like it checks out. It 100% checks out.
So what are your thoughts about kids mental, because you asked me the question, and it's something that you've been talking about.
You know what's interesting? And I need to talk about this a little bit more, but my business and my whole career started because of gaming, but it had nothing to do directly with gaming. So my first article series online is called How League of Legends, which is a game I absolutely love. I'll be playing tonight again. Is and I'm actually going to mention something else. I just remembered that. But how League of Legends can help us solve the biggest cybersecurity issues that we have. And I broke it down very like detailed oriented, even for people who don't know League of Legends. And people loved it so much that I had a cybersecurity conference reach out to me and they said, hey, can you keynote our conference with this? It was I was like, what's going on with my life? I had only been in cybersecurity for a couple of years at that point, and I was like, I don't think I could keynote a conference, but okay. I did the conference, and they said it was one of the best keynotes they've ever had in the conference, and people loved it. And also, gaming taught me how to work in teams, how to regulate my emotions. I actually see as I'm playing, my gaming experience as I go older just got better, to be honest. And I'm realizing, and it's very, very interesting, the better my mental health is in terms of how I'm treating myself, the words that I tell myself, what I say to myself, all of that, plus the how good I feel about myself that day dictates how well I'm going to do in the game. Every single time without fail. So let's just say I had like 3 things for my business that I needed to complete, but I only did one of them, and I kind of wanted to start the second one, but I didn't really do that. And then before I go to bed that night, I'll play a game. I will lose all my games, every single one of them. But if I wake up the next morning and I do all 3 things, maybe I do 2, but the other one I didn't do as well as I wanted, but at least I got it done. I looked at it for 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, we're doing it on a Wednesday, but we got the first 2 done. I feel good about myself. The words I'm telling myself is good. I will win either all of them or most of the games that night. And it happens every single time without fail. And also, the way that I relate to people, the way that I speak to people has been enhanced because of gaming. I believe I was very much prepared for content creation because I'm a gamer. Like the things that people say in the comments, half the time, even though they're mad at me, I'm cracking up. 'Cause I think it's the funniest thing ever.
So you think about your response to this one. What is the funniest thing that somebody has ever commented that was just, and did you respond to it? So one that I got recently is somebody asked me if my earrings, they're like, is that a rabbit on your shoulder? Or is that your earring? Is your earring flipped around? No, it was a mouse. They were like, is that a mouse on your shoulder? Not even. And so I was like, if it was a mouse, its name would be Schmitty. And they didn't even.
They were like, you know what? Never mind. Oh, I love, honestly, certain comments are so funny. I'm not even mad at them. Other comments, I realize that they're in a trauma response. There's something that someone said that I remember. If it is hysterical, it's historical.
Oh, wow.
And that hit me. So anytime I make a piece of content and someone is coming out of the left field, the far left field, and they have a whole, like, they're in it. They're in
nothing
the tomato.
to do with anything you like their reaction and what you did. It does not relate.
I was like, what? Why are you accommodating this? What's happening? Then I was like, Fareedah, if it's hysterical, it's historical. This has nothing to do with you. And it's so difficult sometimes because you feel like it has something to do with you. But like once I take a couple of deep breaths, I walk around the house, rant about it to someone who loves me, typically my mother. And I sit down, I'm like, okay, let me respond to this. And I typically pray about my response as well. And then I respond to them. And sometimes there are times I want to be snarky. It's bad, It's like,
do you ever just delete it? So that's my thing.
Sometimes.
Okay.
If they're going left.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes they try to they'll get really, really political on the comment. And if no one has responded to them, I will be like, okay, we're probably deleting this comment. There are certain times I restrict, I delete, I block. I will do that.
Yeah. And I do hope that, and I say it everywhere, I hope TikTok does better so I never block on TikTok because they can just come back from a different account. And so that's why, and I want to be able to search. I want to, if there is a profile picture connected with it, I want to be able to possibly remember, because if they realize they can't come back to my account, all they have to do is just switch to one of their other 30, I don't know.
Which is why I like Instagram though, because they will say block this and then any other account that they create. And I'm like, period. Yes.
And so I have blocked people on Instagram. And the funny thing, so when I first started creating content, people would message me, hi. And I can be naive sometimes. So I would be like, hi. And then it goes left and then I have to block them. So I don't respond to the hi messages.
Oh, anyhow, I always tell people, if you really want to, if you really have a question, please just ask it. Never say hi. Because if you say hi, you're blocked. Now, I don't block women who say hi. Yeah. People who appear as women, I don't block them. But if it's someone who appears as a male or as a man, it's immediate block. Like I don't care, you're blocked. I don't send voice messages to men as well. Anyone who's presenting as a man on their profile, I'm like, nope. I don't know how you identify, but you look like a guy. I'm blocking you, or I will not respond with a voice message, because because I love voice messages to my community, but I have, let me just be nice and say 8 times out of 10, when I send a guy a voice message, it goes left every single time. 8 times out of 10. Never, I'm not doing it. So it's like, those are things that you learn. And I really want to create something where I bring people together who are content creators, but who work with like kids and families to help families understand the ins and outs of your kids creating content online. Because if your kid is creating content, I do not recommend that your kid manage any of the comments, any of the messages. They shouldn't see anything.
I don't think they're prepared for it. I would maybe show them some of the positive, like, oh my gosh, this person was really impressed. I don't know, like this person, because sometimes people will say like, this content changed my life, like because of you, I want to. So I might share a few of those, but I think you always run into the risk as well that the child's going to go look at it on their own, or that a friend is going to tell them, like, oh, did you see? And so that's where something that I do with the kids that I work with is, it's like, if somebody comes to you and with drama and they're like, ooh, so-and-so said this, always ask them, well, what did you say? Because if you saw this comment, you heard what this person said, what did you say? And I'm excited to see what you do with that. My next project is, I am working on a book about mental health online.
Oh, what? Are you kidding me?
So that's gonna be my next book. Is going, because I think it's important. I do think there is a way to be a content creator, because I just saw recently a woman who she was making tons of money online from being a content creator, and she just got tired and
wasn't she on the Today Show?
Yes, I think so. We saw the same one.
I think I saw it like a couple days ago, because I was looking at it for something. I don't know what I was looking at it for, to be honest. Because I'm gathering videos so that parents can show their kids the videos if they ever want to become content creators, if they want to have a social media account. I'm making a list of like the pros and cons of kids being on social media. And I'm like going deep in all of the pros and cons, but very quick and short bullet points, because parents don't have time to be reading like pages of things. But just something to get to the point of like, why do kids like social media?
And I think there are some positives. And I do think parents have to be careful with the kid getting their identity. So that's something that I get concerned about, like, especially when kids become famous with social media and everything, because it does open them up in a way where I don't always know if they're prepared for it. And so I do think they need a good team around them when those things come up. And because we already have a mental health crisis with kids and teens anyway.
And they go online, and then they're more susceptible to things online. Have you seen, I haven't seen it, by the way. I think it's Charlie D'Amelio and Dixie D'Amelio's Hulu documentary that they had. They talked a lot about mental health and how it was being teens and being famous online. I might do some reaction clips to the show, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in that as well. Because they talked a lot about like when they lost a couple million followers or whatever, that just took a hit. And it's this idea, and I believe there's like 3 main ideas that affect people's mental health. The feeling that I'm not enough, it's not available to me, and I'm too different. And a lot of people struggle with the I'm not enough. That's like the biggest part. And so when kids feel like they're not enough, but the only thing that makes them feel enough is the validation they get online. I just started watching I feel like I saw it before, but I'm watching it again. Taylor Swift's documentary, I think Miss Americana. And she's talked about how her entire validation was the crowd. was the collapse. And so when she had that incident on stage with Kanye West and taking him saying that, Beyonce had the best music video, not you, and she heard the crowd booing, she thought the crowd was booing her. And so that was a pivotal moment for her because she felt like the world was against her. And of course, people talking about her and who she's dating, which is interesting. I had this thought, and this is not in this particular subject, but it's just a thought about women in the sphere when they're online and they're creating content, or they're people who are famous. It's interesting that they say that she can't keep a man, but they never say that these men can't keep her.
And it's always the famous person normally. Right. And I think when a guy maybe goes, you're right. They don't talk about, why couldn't Pete Davidson keep Kim?
Right. Or like the guys that she was dating, that they couldn't keep Taylor. Yeah. Because she's like an independent, amazing, beautiful, successful woman. So I'm like, if you're a parent and you're raising girls and they're growing up to be young women online, they're going to have a completely different reality of being online, whether they create content or not, than someone who is a boy going into a young man, even though they have their own problems online. Like, I don't know. That's the whole. There's a lot. I get messages of like, Fareedah, what do I do? Like, my kid is watching these videos on TikTok and they think differently about, just how the world works because of what they see on YouTube and TikTok. So,
and the one thing, because we really didn't get into it that much, I do think people have to be careful with Instagram, or when kids are using filters to augment their appearance.
Yes.
And just how they feel about themselves. 11 to like 15 is a weird time anyway.
I know. I just thought like the best age typically for social media is 16. That's typically across the board. Now, some kids are a little bit more mature. They can join at 13 or 14.
But I do think, and I think it's different when people are using it to connect with friends versus using it to be a content creator and putting things out there for everyone. You just have to be careful. But I do think, because sometimes people, they start focusing on how do I look and this and that. And even for me, because Instagram, I think of that as like the pretty app. And the things I do on Instagram, it looks a certain way. But then, and that's what I loved about TikTok, is like, I have videos that have done extremely well there where the lighting is horrible.
Yes.
Horrible. But the information was great. Yeah. And for some reason, because I just like, let me just throw up a video real quick. Like, I'm just gonna respond to this question. I didn't have my ring light, and but I found authenticity and I found community on there in a way. And then I was just very careful to not go down some of those rabbit holes. And then sometimes, like, after a major event happens, so if there is like a major crisis, I stay off social media, because that's all that's going to be on there.
Yes. I have to have 2 different accounts. So I have 2 different accounts for everything. I have 2 different Facebooks. Not Twitter, actually. But Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, I have 2 different profiles. The platform knows it's both me, so high platform, but I have it has to be different, because my mind, I'm like, what goes on one page, I just cannot. And I work to make my page not all doom and gloom, but I do understand that sometimes some parents might see a video and they feel like, oh my God, I'm being a horrible parent because I'm not doing this. And I'm like, girl, like, no one is perfect. This is just information for us to be better. All of us, no one's perfect.
Yes. And so do you have any final thoughts? Like, what is your main takeaway to parents as we talk about managing mental health online?
I always say focus on your mental health first. Like, your mental health is like it's a trickle down effect to your kids. So instead of this hyper focus on your kids, and of course you're going to be focused on your kids, like, they're your life, they're your love, they're your world. At the same time, you have to focus on your mental health and healing your own childhood trauma and emotional wounding, because if you don't do your own work, You cannot give your kids a safe space to talk to you, to have open conversations, to have honest conversations. So I always say that that's the number one thing. As much as I talk about cybersecurity and internet safety and privacy and all of the things, I also love to leave a little droplets here and there around mental health and emotional health and healing as a parent. I'm pretty sure you saw the studies that show that the parents that went to therapy had bigger impacts on the children's behavior than when the children went to therapy. So, yeah.
And that's why. So I went into therapy to become a child and adolescent psychologist.
Love it.
And very quickly, I realized if the adults aren't okay, I can work with this kid for years
Mm-hmm.
and not get anywhere. But if I can work with that parent for a
Done
good
deal.
like the child will get better.
Yep.
And there are situations, there are cases, there are because sometimes I work with older kids where the parents are not going to change, and we're just trying to get you safely to adulthood. Like that is our goal.
Yes.
Like that is just,
That's it. Let's get the boat.
let's just get you safely there, and then you'll be able to control your environment more. But I even work with some young adults that they're not able to they're not able to financially support themselves to be on their own, and they have to be in difficult situations. And so when the environment isn't okay, the kids will only get so much better. And I love how you talked about the parent doing it first. And it reminds me of in the airplane, put your mask on first.
Yes.
Like, and I know they do that for parents, because if the air pressure dropped and the mask came down, my first thought is going to be my child. But if I'm passed out, I'm no good to my child. And so I have to put my mask on first. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. I talk about my own therapy, how my own therapy was incredibly helpful. And what it is it's finding the right person. So my first therapist was not right. And I thought, and it just wasn't the right fit. She's employed. Like I don't know, she's probably good for somebody. She was not right for me. But I have had good experiences with other therapists, and sometimes somebody walks with you for a season, and sometimes you're able to kind of go back and forth with the same person. But I do think that it's really important as we talk about mental health online. If I, as a parent, don't feel good about myself, my kid is not going to feel good about themselves. Without significant intervention, like it makes the therapist work a lot harder. I'll be honest.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It is so much harder. And I love how you talked about how, because the way I think about it, when people are being mean in the comments, I think about projection.
Mm-hmm.
And so something I said hit a nerve. And for my content, because I am always like, anyone that follows my content, I am never blaming, shaming.
No.
Like, I'm never trying
That's
to
why I
say
love
it
your
in that
content.
way.
I love it. Like, thank God. It's safe here.
How did you get offended by what I said? Like,
So
I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Right.
And so I do think that people being aware that sometimes people pleasing can be a trauma response. And that sometimes it's like, oh, some people are not going to like my content. They're not.
Yeah. Some people are not. Yeah, I know mine. I'm like, some people are like, no, this is a little bit too. I know I need somebody else. That's totally fine.
And that's why there are so many people out there, but I so appreciate what you do. I'm so glad that we were able to connect. If there are any ways that I can help support any of those things down the road, you have my information.
Absolutely. I'm going to contact you because I'm working on an event in October. So I'm like seeing how I'm going to do it and the lineup and everything. But I'm very, very excited. And I will say that what you do in helping parents, that is the foundation to protecting kids online. Like, to be honest, like as much as security and privacy matter, and it really, really does. I'm not saying it doesn't, because it does. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. However, the foundation, the tree, the trunk of everything is the mental health and healing wounds. And not to say that you're always going to be 100% healed, but at least you're working on it.
Because I do think, because what happens when I find that thing on my child's phone, it triggers something in me.
Yes.
And it triggers, once again, that fear. And I might know what I did as I don't, because for a lot of parents, they go to that worst case scenario first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't want to overreact in that moment to something. And if it is really this concerning, overreacting is not going to help.
Oh, no, they're just
It's
gonna
just
shut
not.
down. They're never gonna talk to you again. As someone who had to have that really difficult conversation with my mother over things I was doing online,
Yeah.
had she had a reaction to me, I would have hit it. I would have met the stranger online that I wanted to meet. I would have run away from the house. I would have lived with him. I would have done whatever, and I never would have talked to her. I just knew it, and she knew it as well, and that's why she played an amazing Oscar-worthy performance, and it was great. It was-
And so relationship. So I would
yes.
love to add that the relationship that we have with our children, that really can be a protective factor when we're talking about these things and protecting mental health online.
That's all that matters. It's all that matters. Oh my gosh. Dr.
I could do
Patrice,
this
you're
forever.
amazing. I
You're
know.
amazing.
I could talk to this for 5 hours straight. Like nothing stops me except life.
So, because it's 8 o'clock where you are, it's 9 o'clock where I am, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
about to start
true.
getting really loopy. And
Yeah.
so,
We can't do it.
I appreciate you being here,
Thank
and
you.
I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Absolutely.